The sharp knock echoed through the presidential residence just as the grandfather clock struck midnight. Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, looked up from the stack of reports on his mahogany desk, momentarily startled. Outside, the moonless night had wrapped Ouagadougou in a blanket of darkness. The guards ushered in a man thin, haggard, with eyes hollowed by grief. "Mr. President," the man's voice cracked, "they've taken my daughter at the border, my little Amma. Only 15. He collapsed to his knees, shoulders heaving with silent sobs. "The officers at Bonko checkpoint, they said she lacked proper papers. But, sir, we both know what happens to girls who lack papers." Traoré's face remained composed, but something shifted behind his eyes. The weight of another lost child, another shattered family. How many reports like this had crossed his desk this month alone? 20-30. Each one filed away with promises of investigation that disappeared into bureaucratic limbo. "I will find her," Traoré said quietly, helping the man to his feet. "You have my word." After the father left, Traoré summoned his security council to an emergency meeting. The chandelier cast long shadows across concerned faces as intelligence officers presented their findings. Reports of missing persons near the Ghana border had increased threefold in 6 months. Local investigations stalled mysteriously. Border officials submitted paperwork that contradicted eyewitness accounts. "The pattern suggests organized trafficking, sir," explained Colonel Osai, pointing to red markers on the map. "But every time we send investigators, evidence vanishes. Someone's protecting this operation." Traoré studied the map, his finger tracing Highway 5, the main artery connecting Burkina Faso to Ghana. The Bonko checkpoint appeared repeatedly in reports, yet remained untouched by consequences. "What about our usual protocols?" Traoré asked. The defense minister shook his head. "We've tried standard investigations, sir. Official channels are compromised. Even our undercover agents are being identified somehow." Traoré thought of the father's eyes, the same eyes he'd seen in countless parents across his country. The same desperate plea, "Protect our children." He remembered his inauguration speech, "I will safeguard every citizen, not from the comfort of this office, but from wherever the threat exists." Abruptly, he stood. "I'll go myself." A stunned silence fell over the room. "Sir," the security chief sputtered, "that's impossible. You cannot possibly—" "Not as president," Traoré clarified, his voice steady. "As a bus driver." The proposal was met with immediate resistance. "Absolutely not. The risk is unconscionable." The defense minister's voice rose with each word. "What if you're discovered? What if you're harmed? The entire nation would be destabilized." But Traoré's mind was made up. "How can I govern what I don't understand? How can I ask others to risk what I won't?" Over the next 48 hours, a remarkable transformation took place. The president's beard was shaved, his tailored suits exchanged for worn trousers and a faded shirt. A trusted driver taught him the mechanics of handling a vintage Bedford bus, the kind that rumbled along rural routes after sunset. "Keep your eyes moving but not suspicious," advised the driver. "Stop exactly where the checkpoints direct you. Never argue initially compliance first, then gentle resistance if needed." Meanwhile, a small, elite team prepared surveillance. A recording device sewn into Traoré's collar, a GPS tracker in his old leather belt, an emergency extraction plan if things went catastrophically wrong. The security chief made one final appeal as Traoré prepared to leave. "Sir, please, send anyone else. The nation needs you alive." Traoré paused, straightening his weathered cap in the mirror. For a moment, he didn't look like a president at all, just another hard-working Burkinabe trying to make ends meet. "The nation needs me to lead," he replied quietly. "And sometimes, leadership means walking the same dangerous paths your people walk every day." That evening, an unremarkable bus pulled away from a garage in eastern Ouagadougou. Behind the wheel sat a quiet man with tired eyes and calloused hands, indistinguishable from any other driver on these routes. 18 passengers boarded market women with baskets, young men seeking work, a mother with 2 sleepy children, and a few solitary travelers with shifty eyes. As the city lights faded behind them, Traoré felt the weight of his disguise. No security detail, no bulletproof glass, just a man and a mission, rumbling toward whatever truth awaited at the border. The passengers' conversations drifted forward. He listened intently, absorbing details that would never appear in official reports. "My cousin went to Ghana last month for factory work," an elderly woman said softly. 3 weeks, no word. Her mother weeps daily. "Be careful at Bonko," a young man whispered to his companion. "Those officers aren't looking for contraband. They're looking for girls." Traoré's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The reality was worse than he'd feared. This wasn't just corruption, it was systematic predation. As they passed through a small village, Traoré noticed something unsettling. No children played in the dusty streets. Doors were firmly shut despite the stifling heat. An atmosphere of fear hung in the air like the evening mist. "This is Kofano village," explained a passenger who noticed his glance. 12 children disappeared last year. Parents don't let their little ones outside anymore. Traoré felt cold despite the warm night. The official reports had mentioned 3 missing children from this region. Just 3. How many more stories remained untold? How many families suffered in silence, believing their government either couldn't or wouldn't help? As Highway 5 stretched before them, cutting through the darkness, Traoré rehearsed his approach. He would be cautious but observant. He would protect his passengers at all costs. And he would remember every face, every word, every suspicious action at the checkpoint. The road narrowed as they approached the border region. In the distance, floodlights illuminated the Bonko checkpoint, a notorious gateway mentioned in dozens of reports. Traoré could make out 3 uniformed figures moving between vehicles, their shadows long and menacing in the artificial light. "Papers ready," Traoré called over his shoulder, keeping his voice deliberately gruff. "Bonko checkpoint ahead." He felt the atmosphere in the bus change immediately. The cheerful chatter died. A mother pulled her daughter closer. A young woman clutched her bag with white knuckles. Their fear was palpable, radiating through the vehicle like a physical force. As the bus slowed, Traoré caught sight of the checkpoint commander, a heavy-set man whose uniform strained at the buttons. His face shadowed beneath his cap. 2 junior officers flanked him, one tall and scarred, the other barely more than a boy. The commander's eyes gleamed with something that made Traoré's skin crawl. Not duty, not vigilance. Something predatory, something hungry. Traoré took a deep breath as he brought the bus to a complete stop. The door wheezed open. Heavy footsteps approached. "Everyone out for inspection," came the barked command. The moment of truth had arrived. "Everyone out. Papers ready." The command cut through the night air as the checkpoint commander's torch beam swept across frightened faces inside the bus. A child whimpered somewhere in the back, quickly hushed by its mother's trembling hand. The beam lingered momentarily on a young girl's face before moving on. But Ibrahim Traoré had caught the predatory glint in the commander's eye. "Move faster!" The officer slammed his baton against the bus door, causing the metal to reverberate. "Everyone outside for inspection." The passengers filed out reluctantly, clutching their documents, shoulders hunched against the harsh floodlights. Traoré stepped down last, maintaining his cover as an ordinary driver. He surveyed the checkpoint with careful, measured glances. Bonko checkpoint was more fortress than border post. Razor wire stretched along the perimeter, disappearing into the darkness. Behind the main inspection area stood several shadowy cabins, windows blacked out. Most troubling were the unmarked vehicles parked discreetly behind these structures. expensive four-wheel drives with tinted windows that had no business at a rural border crossing. The commander, a corpulent man whose authority seemed to emanate from fear rather than respect, strutted before the line of passengers. His name badge read Captain Diallo. Behind him, the tall officer with a jagged scar across his cheek watched impassively, while the youngest officer, barely 20, shifted nervously, eyes darting between the passengers and his superior. "Documents!" Diallo barked, barely glancing at the identification cards thrust forward by trembling hands. His attention remained fixed on the younger women and girls, assessing them like merchandise. The atmosphere was thick with tension. A mother pulled her daughter closer as the captain approached. The young woman who had been clutching her bag now seemed to be making herself as small as possible, avoiding eye contact. "You..." Captain Diallo stopped before a girl who couldn't have been more than 16. She stood alone, a small rucksack her only possession. "Where are your travel documents?" The girl raised frightened eyes. "I'm seeking asylum in Ghana. Sir, I don't have a passport, but I have this letter from the Refugee Assistance Program and..." "Not good enough." Diallo snatched the paper from her trembling hands, glancing at it with theatrical disdain. "You'll need to come with me for special processing." The girl took an instinctive step backward. "Please, sir, I was told this letter would allow me to..." "Are you questioning my authority?" Diallo's voice dropped dangerously. He gripped the girl's arm, pulling her toward one of the dark cabins. "Stop!" Traoré stepped forward, keeping his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "She's under my responsibility. I'm transporting her to the UN Refugee Commissioner's office in Accra." The checkpoint fell silent. Even the insects seemed to pause their nighttime chorus. Captain Diallo turned slowly, eyebrows raised in disbelief. "Since when do bus drivers decide who crosses international borders?" Traoré stood his ground. "Since officers like you stopped doing your job properly." A tense silence followed. The young officer's eyes widened at this unexpected challenge. The scarred officer's hand moved subtly toward his holster. Diallo's expression shifted from shock to calculated amusement. He released the girl and approached Traoré, stopping close enough that the president could smell the stale cigarettes on his breath. "You seem very concerned about this girl," Diallo said, his tone suddenly silky. "Perhaps we can come to an arrangement. The priority processing fee is 200,000 CFA. Pay it, and she can continue her journey without complications." "Extraordinary." The man was brazenly demanding a bribe while in uniform, surrounded by witnesses. It confirmed everything Traoré had suspected. This wasn't occasional corruption. It was standard procedure. "I only have 100,000, Traoré replied, reaching into his pocket with deliberate slowness. Diallo's face hardened. "Not enough. Either 200,000 or she stays with us for processing." The young officer shifted uncomfortably. "But sir, we told them we'd have 4 girls tonight. They're waiting at the usual..." "Shut your mouth," Diallo hissed, but the damage was done. The words hung in the night air, damning in their implication. There was no mistaking their meaning. Girls were being collected to order, passed along to waiting recipients. Traoré felt ice in his veins. This wasn't just petty extortion. It was a systematic operation to funnel vulnerable young women into trafficking networks. His hands trembled slightly, not with fear but with fury. "Fine." Traoré slowly counted out another 100,000 CFA and handed over the full amount. "Now let her continue with me." Diallo pocketed the money with practiced ease. "Approved. Everyone back on the bus?" As the passengers reboarded, Traoré noticed the relief on their faces, relief tinged with resignation. This experience wasn't shocking to them. It was routine. The realization made his determination burn even hotter. The young girl whispered thank you as she climbed aboard, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Traoré nodded silently, the weight of her gratitude almost unbearable. How many others had there been who received no help? He started the engine, watching in the rearview mirror as Captain Diallo pulled out a mobile phone, stepping away from his colleagues to make a call. His agitated gestures suggested concern. Perhaps someone would be displeased that their delivery was one person short tonight. As the bus pulled away from Bonko checkpoint, Traoré pressed the tiny recording button sewn into his shirt collar. Bonko checkpoint. 3 officers confirmed. Captain Diallo is the ringleader. Evidence of organized trafficking network. Young officer mentioned usual arrangement for delivering 4 girls tonight. Requesting immediate surveillance on all communications from checkpoint. The dark road stretched ahead, empty and ominous. Traoré drove for 20 minutes before pulling into a concealed lay-by where they had established the secure meeting point. He ensured the passengers couldn't overhear as he spoke into his hidden communication device. "Tomorrow, same time, same route," he whispered. "But this time, we bring justice." The word justice lingered in the still night air. Not just investigation, not just arrests. Justice for the father who lost his daughter, for the village that lived in fear, for every vulnerable person who had been treated as merchandise by those sworn to protect them. Tomorrow, the predators would become the prey. The old Bedford bus rumbled to life under the moonless sky, its headlights cutting through the darkness like twin beacons. But this night, the darkness concealed more than just shadows. 20 elite agents lay hidden among the tall grasses flanking Highway 5, their positions meticulously calculated for maximum coverage. Surveillance equipment monitored every frequency used by border personnel. Nothing would be left to chance. "Target location active," a voice whispered through Ibrahim Traoré's nearly invisible earpiece. 3 subjects confirmed at position. 2 unmarked vehicles behind the main structure with heat signatures indicating multiple occupants. Traoré adjusted his driver's cap, his heart beating steadily despite the danger ahead. The previous night's revelations had confirmed his worst fears, a trafficking operation running through an official border checkpoint, with government personnel not merely complicit but actively participating. Tonight would end differently. "Remember," his security chief had warned during the final briefing, "your safety is paramount. If they discover your identity, your life will be in genuine peril. These people have powerful connections." Traoré had nodded solemnly. "I understand the risk, but some battles must be fought face to face." The passengers aboard tonight's bus were all carefully selected undercover officers, including the young woman who would again play the role of a refugee without proper documents. Each carried concealed equipment and was prepared for multiple scenarios. Nothing had been left to chance, yet everything hinged on Captain Diallo taking the bait. As they approached the floodlit checkpoint, Traoré felt an odd calm descend upon him. For 30 years he had served his country in various capacities, but never had the line between right and wrong been so crystal clear. The bus rolled to a stop. The familiar command barked out, "Everyone outside for inspection." Like the night before, the passengers filed out under the harsh glare of torches. Captain Diallo's eyes narrowed when he recognized both Traoré and the young woman. "You again." He studied them suspiciously, twice in 2 days on the same route. "Mechanical problems yesterday." Traoré replied evenly. "Had to return to Ouagadougou for repairs. Now completing the journey." Diallo grunted, unconvinced. 2 new figures had joined him tonight, civilian-dressed men with cold, assessing eyes. One whispered something in Diallo's ear, causing the captain to focus more intently on the young woman. "Her again," Diallo said, pointing. "Still no proper documents. I assume she has temporary papers." Traoré protested, with carefully calculated weakness in his voice. "I told you yesterday. No more negotiations." Diallo's tone had changed, hardened with newfound determination. He grabbed the young woman roughly, causing her to stumble and fall. "She stays, period," as he dragged her toward the darkened cabin. Traoré gave the signal a simple adjustment of his cap. Instantly, the night exploded into blinding light. Powerful beams from hidden positions illuminated the checkpoint like midday, revealing every shadowy corner. The thundering of footsteps surrounded the perimeter as elite agents emerged from concealment, weapons trained on the stunned border officers. "What is this?" Diallo screamed, releasing the young woman. "Who are you people? You have no jurisdiction here. You don't know who I work for." "I do," Traoré said, removing his cap as he stepped forward. "And I'm here to end it." The transformation was remarkable. Even without his presidential attire, Traoré's bearing changed completely. His shoulders straightened, his voice deepened with authority, and his eyes, previously downcast and submissive, now blazed with righteous purpose. Captain Diallo's face drained of color as recognition dawned. Mr. President Impossible." Within moments, the checkpoint was secured. The two civilians revealed to be buyers inspecting their merchandise before transport to Ghana were apprehended attempting to escape. When agents breached the darkened cabins, the full horror was exposed: 5 young women held in deplorable conditions, waiting to be trafficked across the border. Documents discovered in Diallo's office detailed a vast network names of corrupted officials, transaction records, and most damning of all, a list of wealthy clients in neighboring countries. The operation wasn't just about extortion. It was industrial-scale human trafficking, protected by those sworn to prevent it. As dawn broke over the horizon, Traoré personally placed handcuffs on Captain Diallo. "This isn't merely a crime," he said, his voice carrying to all present. "This is treason, betrayal of our people, of our nation's soul." By morning, President Traoré appeared on national television, still wearing his driver's uniform, standing beside the evidence and detained conspirators. He spoke not with triumph, but with solemn determination. "Last night, I saw firsthand the corruption that has infected our borders. I witnessed officers sworn to protect our citizens instead selling them like cattle. I will not tolerate this cancer in our nation. Every person involved will face justice, regardless of their position or connections." The broadcast electrified the nation. In markets and taxis, homes and schools, people gathered around televisions and radios. The story spread through villages and towns, transforming from whispers to proud declarations. "He walked our road, he saw with his own eyes." Within days, 24 additional arrests followed, including 3 senior government officials implicated in the trafficking network. Traoré established a direct hotline for citizens to report corruption and human trafficking, promising that every report would be investigated personally. "True leadership," he concluded in a national address, "isn't exercised from behind a desk. It requires walking alongside those you serve, seeing their struggles, and sharing their risks. No one is safe when abusing power. No one is abandoned when facing injustice." From that night onward, the midnight buses no longer carried fear, they carried hope. And a president who had proven that in the darkest night, justice could still shine bright. Thank you for following Ibrahim Traoré's inspiring journey. Don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications to discover more incredible stories from StoryMoss.